Look, Hyundai has had a lot of wins lately. I am not ashamed to say I am a fan of what they've been doing, particularly with their N division, and that is producing some amazing sporty compact cars that rival some of the best in the marketplace. If you'll recall, we turned a faster lap on our official test track with a Hyundai Veloster N than we did with the almighty Honda Civic Type R. Now the Hyundai Elantra N is out, and it may just be a Civic Type R with about a $10,000 discount. Stickering at around $35,000, the Elantra N puts out a claimed 274 horsepower, which we think might be a little bit underrated, because when you look at the data that we're gathering with this car on track, you'll see that it pulls out of corners nearly as hard, if not harder in some spots, than the 300 plus horsepower 10th generation Honda Civic Type R. Now, Honda is upping the ante with their 11th gen Type R, but for now, this Elantra N deserves to be mentioned in exactly the same breath with every single nearly 300 horsepower or above car in its peer group. First off, Hyundai's attention to ergonomics is as good or better than anybody else in the marketplace. Everything is right where you feel it needs to be. The relationship between the wheels, the pedals, and of course there's no shifter because this is a paddle shifted dual clutch automatic, but everything fits a variety of drivers very, very well. There's plenty of adjustment for various sizes and shapes, and there's plenty of headroom inside the car, even with a helmet on. Under the hood, the Elantra N shares the same basic turbocharged 2-liter engine that's also found in the Veloster N. Although the Elantra has a larger 54mm turbocharger attached to it, which produces one more rated horsepower, 276 versus 275 in the Veloster, but quite a bit more torque. 289 foot-pounds of torque in the Elantra versus 260 in the Veloster. This is a car that's going to feel at home at any track day you take it to. So let's take a look at some of the data we collected at the official test track of Grassroots Motorsports, the Florida International Rally and Motorsports Park in Keystone Heights, Florida. First thing we're going to do is we're going to compare the Hyundai Elantra N in blue to the Hyundai Veloster N in red. Now, the Veloster N turned a slightly faster lap than the Elantra N did, by about 0.7 of a second. Turned a 1:21.49 second lap in the Veloster N. That was our fastest, and we turned a 1:22.08 lap in the Elantra. That was our fastest for that one. But let's see where they're actually different. So first place we see some difference is we see this area here, where the Veloster is a little bit faster through the fast right-hand kink turn 4 at the firm. So why is that? Well, could be a few reasons. First off, both cars are entering at about the same speed, just that the Veloster is going through the corner a little bit faster than the Elantra is. Both get a nice exit and have the same terminal speed as they approach the next corner. So explanations. That's going to come down to just feeling like I had a little bit more grip on that particular day in the Veloster than I did in the Elantra. Honestly, that can come down to something as simple as track conditions. It can come down to something as simple as where the particular set of tires are in their wear curve, whether there was some sand blown on the track. I don't really want to chalk that up to anything inherent with the car. The Elantra has a slightly longer wheelbase than the Veloster does, but the handling subjectively felt very, very similar. So I don't want to interpret that as an inherent, something inherently better in the Veloster than in the Elantra, just something that was giving it a little bit more grip on that particular day. So we're almost going to say that that is sort of within the margin of error, because elsewhere in the more objective parts of the data, I'm not seeing any major differences. Let's scroll along here, see if we can see anything else different. Here's actually a real nice little example going through our S's where the Elantra is going quite a bit faster than the Veloster through the S's, possibly a place where that extra wheelbase is giving a little bit more stability. The S's are essentially a bumpy straightaway where you're running over curbs fairly continuously. That is some place where a little bit more wheelbase could give you a little bit more confidence and a little more stability going through there. So now let's replace that red trace of the Veloster N with a trace for the Honda Civic Type R. Now the Honda Civic Type R, our best lap in it was only about a tenth and a half or so off of the Veloster N. So we were faster, of these three cars, we were fastest in the Veloster N, second fastest in the Civic Type R, third fastest in the Elantra N. But from looking at this data, I am going to say that many of these traces are certainly within the margin of error as to what we're looking at here. So let's look at a couple places where there's notable differences. Here is a fairly dramatic difference in acceleration that I'm seeing right here, and you can definitely see the difference here between the traditionally stick-shifted manual transmission of the Honda Civic Type R and the dual-clutch paddle-shifted 8-speed transmission of the Hyundai Elantra. As soon as that Civic Type R, you can see the Civic Type R actually got a better launch out of this very slow second gear hairpin. The Elantra caught right back up with it, and then as soon as that Civic Type R had to shift into third gear, the Elantra just began running away from it. Now, down a much longer straightaway, say the back straight at Road Atlanta or any of the long straights at Road America, the superior power of that Civic Type R, as it gets to spend longer times in gears, might be able to outrun this Elantra at higher speeds. But in these second and third gear medium speed acceleration zones, the Elantra has a clear advantage. See a couple spots where the Honda's pulling a bit of an advantage, and one of those is under braking right here, coming into the fastest area of the track. We can see we held speed just a little bit longer in the Honda and broke just a little bit later in that Civic Type R than we did in the Elantra. Comes down to a balance and driver confidence thing and just a physical brake capability thing. So that's where the Honda is making up some of its speed to the Civic. Sorry, that's where the Honda is making up some of its speed to the Elantra. See another little advantage here for the Honda, just like we saw in the Veloster, in that high-speed right-hand kink. Civic Type R going through there just a little bit faster than the Elantra. Now we're seeing both the Civic and the Veloster N going through that high-speed kink faster than the Elantra. So could be saying something about track conditions on the day we tested the Elantra. Could be saying something about how those cars are communicating back to the driver and how much confidence I felt going through there. Subjectively, they all felt very similar to me day and date of when we were actually doing this testing. Another thing we noticed on track with the Hyundais was no real tendency to overheat. Now, even when we had the Civic Type R out at our track day doing our testing originally back in November of 2020, we did notice that that temperature needle was climbing into the higher ranges of the gauge there. Did not notice any of that with either of the Hyundais. Now, was this scientific testing? No, not exactly, but that Honda Civic Type R does have the reputation out there as something that you have to take special care with at track days so it doesn't get too hot. In our testing of both of these Hyundai N vehicles, we did not see any of that happening. So the numbers we got at the firm just sort of back up what I already believed, and that is that the Hyundai Elantra N, like the Veloster N, is a fantastic track car, and it is every bit the track car that the almighty Honda Civic Type R is. And as someone who's also driven the GR Corolla, I can tell you that there are no bad choices in this group. They are all fantastic drivers' cars, and you should absolutely not sleep on these Hyundais because they are doing what Honda and Toyota are doing, possibly for less money. If you're enjoying the content we're doing here on the channel, please throw a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, and you can check us out on the web at grassrootsmotorsports.com. We'll see you next time at the track.
Support brands that support Grassroots Motorsports. Get your chemical solutions from CRC Industries. Visit crcindustries.com to learn more.